Hello everyone, welcome back. This is peachykeenpans. My name is Claire and today I'm going to be updating my Pan Those Eyeshadows project. So I'll talk about the three that were originally in the project that I haven't rolled out yet. So this is now my second update on those shades. And then I'll talk about the two new shades that I rolled in after that. Yeah, I think that's how I'll do it. Which does mean though that the pan that I did hit, I hit one pen, is not going to be right at the start, so stay tuned. But yeah, the first shade that I have had in now for 2 months was Marc Jacobs On the Dance Floor. So that is, how am I going to do this? Sneaky. I'll try to do it this way. On the Dance Floor is this shade here, so I'll see if I can get that up close. You can hopefully see a bit of a dip, like it's nothing dramatic, but it's essentially where I'm up to at the moment with it. So this is the result of, what was the number? 8 uses this month, and the previous month was 6 uses. So yeah, essentially seeing a bit of a dip now. But yeah, so 14 uses in total in this project. It looks like it'll take, I mean, if that's the result of 14 uses, probably 3 times that again to hit pan if I continue to use it the same way I have been, which is with a sort of medium-sized fluffy brush and mostly in the outer corner. So yeah, I like the shade well enough. Like, I am a peach connoisseur, you could say. For me, like, my neutral is peach. That is my go-to eyeshadow color, and yeah, in terms of all the peaches that I have, this is not one of my favorites. Like, I think it's fine, but it's a bit too bright, and maybe a little sort of surprisingly orange. If anything, it's actually a coral, not a peach, is maybe what I should say. And yeah, something about it just makes any look quite bright, even if it is buffed out. So what I have done sometimes is then use the dustier, pinky kind of mauvey color in the palette and blended the two together so that it's less of a sort of accidental pop of muted neon, if you will. But yeah, that's how I'm going with that shade. I imagine it will be in for a while yet. Next up we have, Phantom from the Clairo Psyche palette. So Phantom is the grey shadow in here. Bend that back as far as is comfortable. So the grey, you should be able to see, definitely has a bit of a dip now. However, that is in part due to me using some of that shadow to make a Franken product this month. So I used it, a little bit of this, not a lot, to cool down the tone of a Franken bronzer that I made, because that was with a relatively warm brown shadow. So yeah, I didn't end up counting that as a use, and because I didn't count that as a use, I only actually used this as an eyeshadow once this month. So not a whole lot, clearly. And I do like this shade. I think I just haven't been drawn to it, in part because on the days where I've worn makeup to work, for example, I just haven't quite had the time or energy to do a full eye look. And basically, if I have a small amount of time to do eyeshadow, what I'll do is a peach or pink, maybe a gold, because it's easy, it's fast. The edges kind of blend into my skin tone, so I don't have to worry about it. Whereas doing a grey is if I've got a little bit more time to finesse it. Not heaps of time, but a little more time. So she's sort of relatively untouched, and I think I talked a bit more about this shade and how I like to use it in my previous video. So if you do want to see me ramble about that, check that out. I'll save it this time. But yeah, I only used that once, which then brings the total uses up to 4 in the project. Then next we've got Gingerbread Latte. So here's the curveball, basically. This is from the Too Faced Gingerbread Spice palette. And yeah, I'll just show you. Basically, this is how the palette is looking right now. So you may notice that two shadows are missing, one of which is Gingerbread Latte and the other one is this bone white-ish shadow. And what I did was I decided to turn it into a bronzer, pretty much. So I mixed powdered sugar, which is that top left shade, with Gingerbread Latte. I also added in a little bit of a vanilla setting powder that I have, like a loose powder from Besame. Not too much because I figured it's loose, it doesn't have binder, so I don't want the product to be really crumbly, but a little bit of that just to lighten it even further, because actually mixing the brown with the white was still not kind of enough for me to feel confident that it would be sheer enough. And then I also added a bit of that grey. So that's where the grey from the Clearer Psyche palette ended up, was in this bronzer. And I'll show you how the bronzer went, because this is my first time making a Franken bronzer. I have made a couple of blushes now, but here she is. Let's see if that can focus up. I think it looks quite nice, you know, it's speckledy, smells like the same as the gingerbread palette pretty much. And yeah, I'm trying to remember why it looks like there's specks of blue in here, and I can't remember why. I think it must have been one of the shadows reacting a little funny, but it smells, you know, mild, nice. It's a good color on me. It's pretty, I don't know what to say. Maybe I'll swatch it to show you. I don't have a lot of arm space right now because I'm wearing my gym top, but, well, my gym jumper. So that's kind of how that looks. Here we go. I keep sort of doing the classic old school YouTuber thing of like putting my hand behind something just because I'm worried that it's not going to focus otherwise and it'll keep focusing on me. But hopefully you can see it's a pretty good color for me. And yeah, look, the reason that I did that was because I don't really like or need, well, I don't particularly like brown eyeshadows in the sense of, you know, for me and how I normally use eyeshadow, or even how I, you know, irregularly use eyeshadow. I guess it's like, it's not a fun or a basic shade for me in the way that every shade of peach pink can be basic, and every other color can be fun. I don't find brown particularly like inspiring or engaging. So yeah, whereas I do use bronzers and I go through them, you know, at a steady pace. Slow and steady wins the race, pretty much. I've used up like 3 or 4 bronzers in my time. And yeah, I just felt the itch. I know that, yeah, I don't know how many of you can relate the itch to just scratch out a shadow and make something new with it. Oh, and yeah, just the other thing that went into that mixture was the last sort of little bits of white from the Clearer Psyche palette. Again, because it was a dud white, just how the yellow in that palette that I had made into a Franken blush the previous month was a dud yellow. I think some of the shades in the Clearer Psyche's box, which is the mini version of that palette, are pretty crap. Like, some of them are good, nice, others kind of mid-range, and others are just bad. That yellow and that white, terrible. So it ended up in the bronzer. So the bronzer is technically made up of a brown, a cream, a white, some yellowy white setting powder, and some grey. Yeah. So that's where we're at. We essentially, before doing that, I had used it once and only once this month. And the previous month I had used it 9 times. So that was used a total of 10 times before it was destroyed to make something new. So, excuse me, where does that leave me? That leaves me with a new bronzer. And yeah, then I guess an empty space in my project, and something, yeah, kind of fun to do, to roll in something new. I should have kept it out. So my next shadow to update is also from this palette, Figgy Pudding. So you would have seen already, Figgy Pudding, the poor gal. It's that, here we are, the purpley colour down here. Look, she is looking, you know, exactly the same as before, I think. because I just haven't used it much. When I say not much, literally twice. This has been used twice this month and twice in the project. So what does this mean? It means I find a dark purple makes an otherwise kind of easy, fun, you know, easy breezy kind of fun look more serious and a bit more, oh, like, you know, what do you got going on there kind of thing. So yeah, I think like where I find a pastel purple fun and easy to wear, I find this darker purple much more intimidating. And I used it, I think once in the outer corner. Is that right? Or maybe once on the lash line and once on the lash line and kind of carving out a huge eyeshadow wing with purple shimmer on the inside, sort of all over the lid. So that was quite dramatic. And I haven't actually yet used it in a traditional outer corner kind of way. I also realized I don't think I talked about how I use these other shadows. If I have the photos, I will have put them up. But yeah, I need to keep working on it. You know what I might do? I have a sort of indie brand's version of something similar to Duraline. It's from Eccentric Cosmetics and it's like a mixing medium. And because I tried this shade as a liner and it's a bit lackluster, so maybe what I'll do is I'll use that mixing medium to try and make it a more kind of dense, liquidy purple instead of being a shadowy, smudgy purple. See how that goes for me. And I will also use it in the outer corner. I will do that. It will happen. So we'll keep going with that shadow. And hopefully, yeah, bring my uses up from the modest 2, which is where we're at the moment. I just realised I picked up my teacup before and didn't even drink it. I'm going to have some now. It's jasmine tea. It's actually a bit bitter. I think I brewed it at the wrong temperature. Because often like the can, it says 100 degrees, but, and I didn't even do 100 degrees, I did 90 today and it still tastes bitter. Anyway, my last shadow, here's the fun part, the exciting part. I was covering up before, so maybe that's a bit of a giveaway. But let's go. Marc Jacobs Meteor from the Fantasy palette, and boom, we have a pan. Is it catching light? Is it catching light? Hello. I hope so. There, it's caught the light. You can see the pan, and you can see it's like pretty decent in terms of having a solid dip going on there. I did end up using, yes, it's the same sort of situation where normally I would use this shadow with a finger. That's definitely the best way to use it. But I also wanted to do an all over the lid kind of sharp, pointy, sort of graphic look with it. And I also wanted to use it as a liner and a lower lash line shadow a couple of times. And those, those ways of using this shadow required that I used a brush. And that did, again, speed up the process of hitting pan a little. I used it a total of 6 times this month. And yeah, hit pan. No surprise because it already had quite a dent in it before. It's a very impactful shadow, like stunning. So anyway, that's where we stand. We have one we have one shadow that is now completely empty, which means I roll in a new one. And we have one actual pan, which also means we roll in a new one. Now we get to roll in 2 new shadows. How exciting. I've already forgotten how many shadows I have in my collection. Isn't that terrible? I'm going to have to count again, so give me a second. I think at the moment it's a little difficult to say the exact number. I'm going to go with 163. So let's go randomly generate this up in here. 1 to 163, and let's go. 108. Is that one of the last ones in the palettes before we get into singles? 108. Oh god. Okay. I have mixed feelings about this. This is from a beautiful palette. So stunning. Like this coveted baby, which, what are my feelings? My feelings are this shadow is beautiful, but it's a red that I have just rolled in. And fuck me, a matte red that is a challenge. Plus it's from this palette, which is like one that I don't think I will ever get a lot of use out of. I kind of bought this more for collector slash packaging reasons than I did for utility in terms of what kind of colors I use often reasons. So then part of me is like, do I even want a pan in this palette? Maybe we'll make this usage based because I don't think I'm gonna hit pan in it. Maybe that's a little pessimistic, but I just don't think I will. But you'll see what I mean. So basically, okay, tangent, but I bought this palette secondhand. And this, before it was re-released recently, was like a crazy, I don't know, it felt like a 1 in 1,000 kind of chance of finding this secondhand online in Australia where it was never released. Like, it wasn't available for purchase here. I don't know if you could buy it from Melt. I've never bought from Melt. I don't. Anyway, like the fact that it was available here and it was something like 26 Australian dollars, like actually crazy. And it was like barely used. Like, look at that. It looks like someone has maybe touched half of the shadows once. I mean, actually now I've touched all of them once, but when I got it, it literally looked like some of the shadows had never been touched. The shade I have rolled in now is this one. So, like, so beautiful, okay? Yes, hell yeah, love me a vampy, juicy red. It even, like, on the monitor, it looks like the brightest, most intense shade in this palette. But then I'm just like, do I want to drill a hole into this thing? I don't know. The pan is so big. So you know what? Maybe I'm going to do what your average makeup consumer would do and not your, you know, wackadoo panner, and actually gently touch it across the whole surface rather than, you know, really pile on in the one spot. The shade is, I'm going to get the pronunciation wrong, Corazon. Although part of me wants to say, is it Corazon? Is it like, is it a th? Anyway, it's, I'm going to look up what that means. My internet's so slow. Come on. You got this. I guess looking up a word is harder work than randomly generating a number. It's just not, okay, it's not loading. Alright then, I'll find out later. I want to say, does this mean heart? Is that what that means? I mean, it would kind of make sense, like coronary, corazon, maybe if they have the same origin. Anyway, beautiful. I will work on it. I will use this shadow. I will not be hitting pan. Alright, now, next shade, I'm going to roll in, let's go, 58. The tension. 50, oh, okay, 58. Alright. Fair game. I'm going to have to show you a bit of an embarrassment. I mean, obviously this happens to a lot of people, but I dropped this palette recently. I actually don't want to make it too upright, lest more shadow fall out of it. But 58, I'm just going to like hold it at most at this angle. 58 is this shadow, Paper Straw. I'm going to bring that up close. You come on, focus. It's that shade in the middle, not in the middle, on, you know, the peachy matte, essentially. It does feel like maybe this will be a bit at odds with having my other peach shadow in here, which I said it was not a peach, it's a coral, so maybe that's fine. Just while I am holding this, because I dropped this recently, and the two shadows with pan shattered, because it makes sense, you hit pan in something, you have ruined its structural integrity. Like, you have, that's just a fact. But it did make me like more inclined to depot this palette, which is weird for me because I don't really depot anything. If anything, I'm doing the opposite of depotting a lot of the time. I am putting single shadows into the empty pans and palettes as opposed to doing it the other way around. But something about seeing this with the two smashed up shades, I was like, well, okay, fine. I'll repress them both, of course. But do I want this palette, or should I just pop them all out and keep them as singles? TBC, I don't know, but I'll let you know what happens with that. Paper Straw is what this shadow is called. I don't know if I said. Paper Straw is a peachy matte. It's like a mid-tone kind of peachy matte, I think. Interesting. I mean, like, I have faith that I could hit pan in this, of course, but it might be a while because they are, like, Colourpop mattes are hard pressed. Maybe what I'll do... Anyway, yeah, I was just musing to myself about whether I'm going to keep this palette intact or depot it. I think I should probably repress the shades first and clean this so that I'm deciding based on the palette at its best self, not looking like a trash mess right now. So I'll swatch all the shadows. I'll just get rid of this bronzer swatch and get all of those shades onto my hand and show you what the color story looks like. Interesting turn of events, guys. All right. Okay, so I don't know how it didn't occur to me before, but I have realized upon swatching these on my hand that I now have an all matte lineup. Like, I do have one satin, but I use it like I would use a matte. And the two beach shadows are way too similar. Ooh, I don't know. I'm so tempted to pull a different one, and now that I've swatched them and actually see it. Okay, here's what they look like. Here's all the shades together. Again, we're doing the focus thing. Focus. They are quite beautiful mattes, but I'm just not convinced that those peaches are different enough that I'm actually gonna get decent use out of both and make enough progress on both. I'm gonna re-roll. I think those two peaches are too similar. All right, I said it. Let's re-roll. Let's do this. Okay, 89. We are being decisive today. 89 is... Oh, okay. 89. I'll show you anyway. It's a shade that I already have pan on because I am not so organized as some as to have a spreadsheet with only the non-pan shadows. So 89 is this shadow, is that right? No, this one. The peachy, well, why do I call everything peach? It's a rosy dusty pink. Anyway, let's generate again. Number 4. Okay, I'm sorry. You may hate me, but I can't use this one either. I can't do it because I have already used this shadow in a project and it damn near broke my spirit. It was this shade up here. That is the shade number 4. That is gingerbread something. What's it called? Gingerbread. And I use it 40 times. Like, does that look like a shadow that's been used 40 times? Not to me, it doesn't. Anyway, I'm not using that another 40 just for it to look like it's had no progress on it. So yes, I'm gonna re-roll. Okay, number 21. Alright, this I think I can do. As long as I don't turn it into a bronzer. But let's do it. Okay, let me just check I've got the right shade. 21. I do. Okay. Boom. There we go. This is the OG Just Peachy Mattes. Now no longer Just Peachy Mattes because I put in a bunch of shimmers and basically made it like my version of a neutral palette. And the shade that I got is Peach Cobbler, which is this shadow right here. So kind of like a warm, juicy, peachy brown. I do wonder how different that actually is from the brown that I just demolished. But you know what? We can work with that. We can work with that. I still love how this palette smells. And actually it'll be fun pulling it out because I haven't really used this palette since I took it on a trip at the very beginning of this year, like a 5-day long trip. So what I'll do is I will wipe off this bottom shade here because as you saw me decide, I think it's too similar. And I will replace it with Peach Cobbler and show you what that looks like. Alright, we've got them all lined up now. Here is what my shades look like. In focus, please. I hope so. Anyway, yeah, pretty much we've got, yeah, a peachy satin, a light grey matte, a dark purple matte, a bright red matte, and then a warm brown matte, of course. I actually think it's even more similar to Gingerbread, the shade that I rolled in immediately before it and decided to veto. But it's fine. I mean, for some reason the fact that it is in that peach palette makes me more compelled to use it than the gingerbread one. I don't know, maybe because in my brain I'm like, yes, a delicious peach, instead of being like, ah yes, another warm brown. But I can make this work. This very challenging set of basically all matte shadows. Let's do this, let's work through it. I'm trying to think if there's a chance of me hitting pan on any of them. I think the grey might be the most realistic within the coming month, if I were to really focus on it and use it in the way that I described in my last video, paired with iridescent or with grey based shimmers. So I'll probably try and focus on it. The only other thing that occurs to me is I could try and use this peachy shadow as a nail polish. Haven't done that for a while. It's Rebecca Morgan, is it? Why did I say Rebecca Morgan? Her username is Maureen. I don't know if her real name is Rebecca Morgan. One of the lovely YouTubers online has a video about how to use eyeshadows as nail polishes, and I feel like this one might be a candidate for it. So anyway, I think the others will just serve, like definitely that purple and that red, they will just have to be some statement mattes, I think. Like looking at that, yeah, look, they pack a punch for sure. But yeah, I've gotten myself into a challenge here. Let me know what you think of these shadows. It's a bit of an odd combination. Like I definitely wouldn't have picked it for myself, certainly to use them all in one go. But yeah, if you're doing the same project, I don't know, let me know how you're doing. Is the morale high, low, non-existent? And I will see you all in a month's time. I hope it's a lovely month for you. Here in Australia, it is getting warmer, rapidly changing all the time because of La Nina, but it is getting warmer, which is really nice. I got to go on my first swim of the year and my second swim of the year on the weekend, which was lovely. And I guess wherever you are, I hope the seasons are treating you well as well. And yeah, I'll see you next month. Bye.